Good morning to everybody in the Ship Day community. You thought you probably heard enough of me on Monday in our start of summer term assembly, but I've got the real pleasure of starting off our thought for the day on a Thursday. And I think it's probably over a year since I last had a conversation with this man, but we have got Will Satch, who's Mrs. Satch's son, Will is our Olympic gold medalist rower, who is now in New Zealand. And when we spoke to him over a year ago, he was over here training away. So just a massive welcome to you, Will. The wonders of technology, talking to you in New Zealand. Tell me, what part of the world are you in New Zealand, and what time is it with you?
So we're 7:21 now in the evening, and it's starting to get a little bit darker earlier on. We're in South Island, so we're Christchurch. Pretty cool part of the world. We're like Sumner, so we've got a beach, sort of a walk away, and then Mount Hutt, which is the ski resort, about an hour and 15 drive. So that's why I've situated myself here, particularly. But no, feeling incredibly lucky to be here. But it's getting a bit darker now. I don't like that. Yeah.
I mean, when exactly? I mean, the last time we chatted, you were still training, really full on, but also I picked up you're also weighing up your options in terms of whether to push on to the next Olympics or maybe just take a step back and retirement and injuries and things like that. So what happened in terms of what then triggered the decision and what happened next?
Look, I think it's probably one of the hardest decisions any athlete probably goes through and makes, and I still think about it to this day, and I probably will for a long time. There are a few things. Number one, injury. There was three big operations I've had, and the recent one was the shoulder, but the heart procedure was still sort of there's a few issues from that here and there. Jürgen leaving, quite a big thing. We kind of made the decision that I'd probably leave the sport before he went. But I've trusted the process and the way that guy's operated the team for my whole time in my career. So there was a lot of umming and ahhing whether, especially in my head, whether I'd be able to trust the process being coached underneath anyone else. And that's not to say that any of the coaches aren't of great caliber, because they're absolutely brilliant. But I just put so much faith into that man. He was quite a big father figure to me, especially when I was coming through the ranks at 19, and I was given such a golden opportunity to go and train with, guys that I'd watched on telly at Ship Lake, and I ended up winning Olympic gold with them, the likes of sort of Andy Hodge and the Pete Reeds, and then see pretty amazing opportunity for my fiancée Zara out here in New Zealand, and then the big hammer of COVID as well. So I think with all four of those factors, my head was definitely turned, and I had a back injury, I think, when we last spoke, actually. So I got over the shoulder, and then I had an epidural on my back, and I was still struggling to sit down properly and effectively row. I don't know if any of you guys have seen me row. I'm quite back orientated, which isn't the most orthodox way of doing it, but it's always been effective, and it was really affecting my performance. So the decision was made, and we jumped. And obviously over the last year, I feel incredibly lucky that I had the opportunity to come out here, and that's all because of Zara. So yeah, I'm pretty grateful for that.
So tell us, tell the pupils, from going from a full-time professional athlete, what are you actually doing out there?
Well, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I got straight into coaching because obviously it's the closest thing. And I kind of wanted to dip my toe in and see whether I did enjoy it, because it's obviously something that's, I've got a very niche knowledge of, and I feel like a lot of knowledge in that because I spent so long doing it. So Christ College was a beck and call. There's a guy I know whose son actually rows at the school. He's a good friend of mine, and he sort of supported the transition. And then the college had been absolutely brilliant. And the great thing is actually it's very, very similar to Shiplake. The school hall, for example, is designed, I think, around Oriel College in Oxford. So you walk in and it's slate roof and it's not brick, but it feels home from home. And that's quite a big part for me. I quite like that. And then the size of the school as well is a similar size. So I've started coaching there, the rowing. And there's a big thing at the end of the year, which is similar to the rowers that know it's Nat Schools and Henley. It's called the Mardy Cup. And it's like Henley and Nat Schools combined. So you can have close to sort of 14,000 spectators. And it's named the Mardy Cup because the big race at the end of the day is the boys 8. And it's named the Mardy Cup after, I think the race was raced out in Egypt, and an Englishman and a Kiwi brought the cup back way back in the day. It was raced on the Nile. So there's a bit of history and heritage behind it. And Christ has been successful in it over the years. But we had a very talented group of boys, and I just wanted to see if I enjoyed it. And I've learned a humongous amount. It's very different being the other side of it. Originally, when I started, obviously, and there's time still. I just want to jump back in the boat and go and do it. And actually, I ended up doing that a fair bit as well. It's one of the best ways to coach them, I think, before I get too fat and old. But yeah, it's very rose tinted at the moment because we ended up winning it, and winning it by quite a lot, which was obviously awesome. But it was the process that I loved the most. Developing those kids. You only get 6 months, which is very different to the UK. So obviously there's no winter program here. It's dual sport, and rugby is obviously a very, very big part of New Zealand, as you know. It's literally in their blood. So trying to get them to train early is just not a thing. So the program operates a little bit different. It's a little bit more explosive. And there's a lot of miles, and there's an amazing program that's run and developed by Henry Smith, and Tony O'Connor is a guy who's a brilliant man who's coaching the national team at the moment. So I kind of went in for his spot in the role. And then there's Malcolm McIntyre, and the list goes on with these coaches. They're brilliant guys, but it was the kids that just bled for the sport, and it's lovely to see. It's lovely to see.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you mentioning also the buildings and the architecture, and remind you of here and a similar type of school. Because, I mean, where you are in Christ, I mean, middle of the South Island in New Zealand, you can't get much further away from here in terms of the globe. I mean, you're as far away from Shiplake as you could possibly be. And I imagine that actually having that familiarity around you maybe allows you to also feel that you're maybe closer to home than you might be just otherwise than looking on a map.
Yeah, look, I'm a home bird, and it's a very small family, but miss mum and my sister Jo dearly. But it's a great opportunity. It's a time in my life where I'm able to do this. Christchurch is a funny city. So in 2010, as you know, there were big earthquakes, and there's bits of the town that's still recovering from it. It's really quite sad to see, but it's changing. It's changing every day. I'll cycle through town one day, and it's all of a sudden you've got this infrastructure going up. So it's quite exciting. It's quite an exciting city to be in at the moment as well, especially with like I said, the sea and the mountains nearby as well. So I feel like we've chosen quite well. Having said that, we just Zara managed to take some annual leave, and she's built it up over the months that we've been here. So we took 2 weeks off just to go away, and we went down southwest. And I mean, the whole country is just beautiful. I haven't quite found a spot that I don't like. Yeah. And like you say, it is far away from home, but the infrastructure is a big thing. And there's, at the moment we're renting a flat that's a bungalow, single skin, and it's got single glazed windows, and that's kind of what I a lot of the city originally was, I think, sort of built up in the 80s. Whereas now it's getting a real sort of injection of money into it. And the hospital I was working in actually is just finished. So that's quite exciting for her to be part of as well.
Can I ask you, well, the place that you're renting, does it have a bath?
It does have a bath.
It does have a bath. So when I was in New Zealand, and everywhere I went, there wasn't a bath. Everybody, it was the most extraordinary thing. I was like,
it's mad, isn't it? It's like in France.
In this country, nobody had a bath.
That's a criteria for me. That's number one. So actually, the property's not that nice, but I walked in and it had a bath. And especially when I was training full time, a bath a day, I used to say, keeps the doctor away. But now I've ended up, I'm going to marry one, so I don't know how that's goes.
I mean, also, I suppose taking that such a difficult decision to retire when you did, and actually making that big decision to go literally to the other side of the world. I mean, is that also part of the process of stepping back from your previous existence, because it's a big cut, rather than maybe living around rowing over here and being aware of people that you train with, continuing to train, and maybe as much as you miss it currently, it would be 100 times more difficult if you were here witnessing it all going on.
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think when it's not under your nose, it's just an easier way of probably dealing with it. And ultimately, like, I've trained with this new bunch of guys that are coming through, dear friends, and I want to be happy for them. I don't want to be, sat around Henley being a miserable git. I want to be the guy that's pumping them up and messaging them saying, like, this is awesome, like, go after it. And it's a transition. It's obviously it was a very strange time. I've probably had a year to contemplate more of it. But I guess it goes in stages. There's days where I want to be back. There's days where I feel that, I can come back and I will come back, but not for this one. And then there's days where I'm having, such a brilliant time and actually giving back to the sport, because it's given me so much. And that's probably the biggest part of it. It's giving back, I think.
It's interesting. We're in the middle of doing our prefect interviews and assessments at the moment. And we're 2 days of 3 into it, and it's amazing actually how many of the just magnificent year 12s sit down and they say, why do you want to be a prefect? And so many of them are saying, well, do you know what, I benefited so much from the school that I want to give back a wee bit, and it's an amazing message to hear. I mean, we've done unbelievably well to basically spend 14 minutes chatting without going into great depth about COVID. Because there's nothing else has been really up for conversation over here for over the last 12 months. I mean, probably of all the places in the world to be in the last 12 months, New Zealand is that place. Again, what has life been like for you through COVID in the last 12 months?
Well, I'd say completely normal, but then it wasn't normal before we left. So there was only one phase I was really annoyed about, and that it's probably, people will listen and be like, oh, you spoiled brat. But I had a friend over here who was a winchman for the Ineos boat. We managed to book some time off work and got someone in to cover my coach here. I was really, really excited. And Auckland went into level 3 the 3 days that we were going to go up. And I was so frustrated. And then I came home and I was like really annoyed. I was driving a bit erratically and came into the flat and I was just thinking, who the hell do I think I am? I'm so unbelievably lucky to be here. And I just had to just think about like that whole phase again. And the fact I'm missing a friend was annoying, but like literally apart from that, it's been pretty glorious. And I've just felt so much for everyone at home. It's obviously been utterly awful. And then seeing sort of close, we had neighbours growing up next door, and they became basically our grandparents. Such a small family from Joe and I, especially Joanna, Dorothy and James, and they really sadly passed away, and not being able to be there for that was pretty crap. But then actually, if I was at home, I wouldn't have been able to go to the funeral anyway. So it's been absolutely awesome. But at the same time, there's something always in the back of my mind. I'm like, geez, like you're just sort of here. It's running like normal, but you're kind of waiting for something to happen, and it's just not really. I think especially just being in South Island and being away. Quarantine was a funny time. Something that I didn't enjoy that much, but
so you had a quarantine when you arrived in New Zealand for a period?
Yeah.
How long was that for?
It's really 2 weeks.
Right.
Up in Auckland. Again, like hotel was lovely. We sort of flew in and we were told that it would be covered, and then it wasn't, which was quite frustrating. But yeah, like it was very strange going from training three to 4 times a day to being locked in a hotel room and your food brought to you. Like you say, you rip the Band-Aid off, and you get away from it. That was that then. So everything was, my emotions and everything was probably a little bit more erratic then. But I feel like I've learned a lot from the process. And again, but like you say, getting away from it is, I wouldn't say it's sort of a cheating way of doing it, but it's probably definitely helped.
Yeah, it's a cleaner cut rather than sort of a bit by bit. But it's interesting, I think New Zealand has always been hyper vigilant on germs and illnesses and diseases coming into the country. I mean, even I remember going over there, with rugby, and you had to make sure that your rugby boots were immaculate.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Because if there's any soil on them, they will actually confiscate your trainers, or your rugby boots, or anything like that. They've got to be absolutely pristinely clean.
Yeah. I think they've always been good at that. I think that's the same with Aussie as well. I remember going over to Aussie for the Youth Olympics, and I think a friend of mine's mum had packed him a jam sandwich and a peanut butter sandwich in a little box. And we'd all got through, and then he got quarantined and he had to be searched and this, that, and the other. And then they found, because we shared a bag, and then there was a bit of mud on the shoes and they've got to clean them off and such. But yeah, it was very strict coming through. But again, for me, it was brilliant because we flew Singapore Airways and no one was flying. So, I could stretch out, which was nice.
I wondered as well, just it occurred to me just actually earlier this morning when I was sort of, looking forward to speaking to you, with Prince Philip dying, and you got an MBE 4 years ago, which I presume was awarded to you by the Queen.
It was actually Charles.
It was Charles. Have you ever had the opportunity? Did you meet Prince Philip at all?
Yeah. I actually went to a fishmonger's dinner. So it's very old school, but there's like like the red coats on the Thames. Yeah. And after 2012, obviously, it was all very new to me. Got invited to quite a lot of events, and we went there, and I ended up sitting next to Prince Philip, and I just thought he was absolutely brilliant. He's respectful. He was good fun. He went after it. There's an awful lot of port drunk. And I just, again, felt extremely lucky. It was such a surreal moment, sort of just being sat next to royalty. So yeah, again, really sad to watch that happen. I think there's this movement, and we won't go into it because I've got my own views, but with Meghan and Harry and all of that too. But this movement that do we need the monarchy? And I'm pro it. So you speak to people over here, and there's a lot of people that have different views about it as well. But yeah, it's really sad to see that.
When you look at the pomp and ceremony and the respect of in that funeral, it is something that I think over here does uniquely well. There are very few countries I can think of where you would have that sort of an occasion done so well with such a level of respect. And we mentioned it in the assembly on Monday. Whatever one's position in the royal family is, you also have a lady who's dedicated her life to serving the country and loses a husband that she's been married to for 73 years, which is that's just hard to. How do you imagine the sense
I know.
of,
you can't even begin to imagine that.
Yeah.
Bless
Well, all of these pupils who are absolutely wrapped in our conversation are still thinking, "My goodness, we've got to get off to period 1 here." So what we'll do is at some stage in the future, because it's a total pleasure. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. We'll catch up with you again, because you know what, linking up with you on the other side of the world, it's fabulous. Your oar has got pride of place in the Davis Centre, and our rowing program is fully at 100%, and it's great that Henley, they've said, is going to go ahead now in August. So
that's absolutely epic to hear.
We've got that about that as well. Well, thanks very much. Look after yourself, and we'll speak again very soon.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. All the very best.
Cheers.